hospital hallway falls dead silence as a man's voice cuts through the buzz of machines and footsteps. "Ma'am, you can't go back there." Dr. Audrey Washington didn't flinch. Her shoes didn't slow. Her hospital badge swung from her neck, and the blue of her scrubs was stained from a double shift she hadn't even finished. The clack of her sneakers hit the tile like a warning shot. She turned her head just slightly, just enough to look at the man who blocked her way with his outstretched arm and furrowed brows. "I am back here," she said. "Let us know in the comments section below, what would you do if someone questioned everything you are in the moment it mattered most?" She didn't yell. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. That tone, low, focused, laced with fatigue and precision, was sharper than a scalpel. The security guard, Rick Halstead, stood his ground anyway. He looked at her, looked through her. Black woman, tight bun, stern face, athletic frame, probably a nurse, maybe a med tech, couldn't possibly be a surgeon, not here. "There's a code blue in OR 2, Audrey said, without waiting for his permission to keep walking. "If you want to explain to the family why their father didn't make it because you stopped the surgeon, be my guest." She wasn't bluffing. A ruptured aortic aneurysm, minutes from death. But Rick still didn't move. His hand hovered near his belt. There was no weapon, but it didn't need one. It was the gesture. The threat. The insinuation. "Ma'am, I'm asking you one last time to step back until I verify your credentials." He was taller than her, bulkier too, with the dull stare of someone who'd spent a little too much time watching cable news. She could see the beads of sweat on his brow, not from exertion, but from the tension of challenging someone he didn't expect to talk back. Audrey pulled her ID off her neck with one hand and held it up like a trophy. "Dr. Audrey Washington, cardiothoracic, chief on call. You want to radio it in or watch me walk through that door?" He hesitated, and that was enough. She stepped around him. The next few seconds stretched out like thread over a blade. He didn't reach for her, but he didn't step aside either. Her shoulder brushed his arm as she passed, and he turned to follow her down the hallway like a shadow that didn't belong to her. Inside the scrub room, Audrey didn't speak. She scrubbed in fast, automatic. Her hands moved with years of practice, but her jaw was tight. "Is everything okay?" asked Lena Cruz, the scrub nurse, tossing her a sterile gown without breaking eye contact. Audrey took it, nodded. "Let's get this guy open." But Lena knew. She saw it. The look in Audrey's eyes, like someone had jammed a metal rod in her spine and dared her to flinch. Inside the OR, Audrey snapped into control. The patient's chest was already prepped, anesthesiologist ready, vitals dropping. She didn't think about Rick Halstead. She didn't think about the fact that her hands, steady and skilled, had just been questioned like a thief's. She thought about the heart. Cut, retract, clamp, bypass. 12 minutes in, Jonah Matthews, the anesthesiologist, broke the silence. "He really tried to stop you?" Audrey didn't look up. "He didn't try. He did." "Jesus," Jonah muttered. "You should have called me. I'd have come out there." Audrey paused only for a heartbeat. "And then what? 2 of us detained instead of 1? The tension rolled off her like heat from a vent. She didn't want comfort. She wanted results. 20 minutes later, the aneurysm was sealed. The patient stabilized. It should have felt like triumph. Instead, Audrey peeled off her gloves like they'd betrayed her. In the hallway, Lena walked with her in silence. "I'll report it," Audrey said, voice raw now. "I'm not letting that slide." "I'll back you up," Lena replied, no hesitation. "So will Jonah. And Dr. Pierce." Audrey stopped at the hallway corner and looked back toward the security station. Rick Halstead stood there, hands on his hips, talking to another guard. His eyes flicked up when he noticed her looking, then back down like nothing had happened. That, more than the confrontation, chilled her. It wasn't that he'd made a mistake, it was that he didn't think he had. Audrey turned away. "I don't want a quiet fix," she said. I want something to change. She didn't know yet what that would look like, but she knew one thing for certain. She'd worn her badge. She'd worn her scrubs. She'd worn her title. But what Rick had seen, what he chose to see, was none of those things. And now she wasn't walking away. She was walking through. He said, "Proceed with the full script of Act 1, Section 2. It should have a minimum of 1,100 words. There should be no titles inside the script. Just make the narration straight, but there should be the act number, section number, and title above the script." ChatGPT said, Act 1, Section 2. The Cost of Being Seen. The next morning, Audrey stood alone in the staff locker room, still in her surgical scrubs from the night before. The fluorescent lights flickered slightly above her, buzzing like an annoyed wasp. Her hair was tied back again, but looser now, frizzy at the edges. She hadn't gone home. She couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that look on his face, Rick Halstead's, like she didn't belong, like she was an intruder in her own workplace. A small knock tapped at the open locker room door. Jonah leaned in, holding 2 coffees. "You look like you either need sleep, caffeine, or vengeance," he said. Audrey gave the smallest smile and took the coffee without answering. "I'd say sleep first," he continued, "but I'm pretty sure you've already made your decision." Audrey sipped slowly. It burned her lip, but she welcomed it. A new sting was better than the old one. "I talked to Dr. Pierce. I'm reporting Rick officially, and I'm putting it in writing." Jonah leaned against the row of lockers, nodding. "Good. That's good. It's been here for what, 3 years?" she asked. 4, I think, Jonah said. "But you wouldn't know it. No one really sees him until you get in his way." "Yeah?" Audrey murmured. "Well, he saw me just fine." She dropped onto the bench and pulled out a folded sheet of paper from her coat. Notes, bullet points, everything he said, the way he hovered, the way he didn't believe her, even with her ID right in front of his face. She'd written it all down like a case report, cold, clinical, unemotional. But her chest still tightened as she read it. "You gonna send it to HR?" Jonah asked. "I'm gonna give it to Pierce first. Let him decide who needs to see it next." Audrey stood, folding the page back up. Her body was still sore, like her muscles hadn't caught up with her mind yet. Every step felt heavier today, not because of exhaustion, but because of exposure. Something about being doubted like that, right at the door to the operating room, made her feel naked. Like her years of training, her long hours, her sacrifices, were just invisible. Down the hall, voices echoed. Nurses changing shifts, techs laughing at something dumb someone said. The hospital moved on as if the night before hadn't happened. But Audrey hadn't moved on. Not yet. Dr. Alonzo Pierce's office sat at the end of the surgical wing, next to the stairwell. Audrey had walked this path 100 times, but today it felt like it took 100 steps. She knocked once. "Come in," a voice said. He was already standing, coat off, sleeves rolled up. Alonzo Pierce was the kind of man who carried presence like a second skin, calm, assured, always 10 seconds ahead of the room. When Audrey walked in, he gestured to the chair without a word. She sat. "I heard," he said before she could even open her mouth. Audrey handed him the paper. "This is everything, word for word." Pierce took it, scanned it quickly, then set it on his desk with a soft sigh. "Rick Halstead. That's his name," Audrey said. Pierce rubbed his temple with 2 fingers. "You know, when we brought him on, I remember thinking he was just standard, background noise, quiet, respectful. But I also remember, Lena told me, he once asked if she was really a nurse because she didn't have the accent he expected." Audrey blinked. "She never told me that." "Didn't want to make a fuss," Pierce said. "I told her to let me know if it ever happened again. It didn't, at least not to her." Audrey leaned forward, voice steady but tired. "It happened to me. I was stopped in my own hospital, with an open chest on the table and a team waiting inside. I could have lost a patient, Dr. Pierce. I could have lost someone because he decided I didn't look the part. Pierce nodded, slowly, thoughtfully. Are you backing me? She asked. His eyes rose to meet hers. Absolutely. Then, I want racial bias training, mandatory, for security first, then staff. And I want this documented. I want a record, not an email apology, not a shrug. A record. Pierce sat back in his chair, steepling his fingers. That's going to ruffle some feathers. I'm not here to protect feathers, Audrey replied. I'm here to save lives, and last night someone stood in the way of that because of how I look. That's not a personality clash, that's a systemic problem. He stared at her a moment longer, then nodded. Okay, he said. Let's start with a meeting. You, me, HR, and head of security. No press, not yet, just accountability. From there we move forward. Your request for training? We'll push it through. Audrey felt something in her stomach unclench. Not relief, exactly, but the tiniest crack of it. She stood. Thank you. Pierce stood with her. For the record, Audrey, you've always had to work twice as hard for half the recognition. But you've never once let that stop you. Let's make sure the next woman who walks through these halls doesn't have to fight the same fight. When she left the office, the hallway felt different. It wasn't louder or brighter, but it felt like she was claiming it again. Back in the break room, Lena Cruz was waiting. Well? She asked, standing up. They're listening, Audrey said. Not enough, Lena replied, but it's a start. Audrey reached into her coat pocket and pulled out her stethoscope. She placed it around her neck like armor. She didn't feel strong, but she looked like she did, and that, for now, was enough. She walked past the staff lounge, past the bulletin board covered in outdated flyers and sign-up sheets, past the surgical sign-in sheet. She signed her name without hesitating. Her pen left a clean, sharp line across the paper. Audrey Washington, surgeon, leader, witness. She didn't say a word to Rick Halstead when she passed him by the elevators. But she didn't look away, either. This time, he did. Audrey's fingers were buried deep in latex when the knock came on the operating room window. A subtle tap, not urgent but deliberate. Lena glanced toward it and saw the unmistakable face of Emily Greer, the hospital administrator, peering in through the small square of glass like a ghost on the other side of the world. She never came down here. Audrey kept her eyes locked on the field. A bypass graft was halfway complete. The patient's chest was open, the rhythm of the heart artificially maintained by machines humming softly at her side. No room for interruptions, especially not from upstairs. Lena tilted her head slightly. She's motioning to speak with you. Tell her I'm busy keeping someone alive, Audrey said calmly. I think it's about the meeting, Jonah added from the anesthesia post. She's probably nervous. Good, Audrey replied. 2 days had passed since her meeting with Dr. Pierce. Word had moved fast. The incident with Rick had become more than whispers. People weren't just talking, they were watching her, watching Rick, watching the hospital, to see what it would do. The surgical team finished the procedure 40 minutes later. Smooth and clean. Another life saved. Another name on the wall. No one would ever associate with the woman who had to fight to get into the room to save it. Audrey peeled off her gloves, stripped her gown, and washed her hands with mechanical efficiency. Her mind wasn't in the OR anymore. Emily Greer was waiting just outside the locker corridor. Her expression was tight, her arms crossed, her suit too stiff for a hospital hallway. She looked like a woman whose day had been full of things she didn't want to deal with. Dr. Washington, she said, tone clipped but polite. I was hoping to have a word. Audrey didn't stop walking. Let's walk and talk. Emily fell into step beside her. We've scheduled the internal review for tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. It'll be myself, Dr. Pierce, the chief of security, and someone from HR. Will Rick be there? Audrey asked. No, we felt it would be best to review the complaint before engaging him directly. That's a mistake. Emily paused. Excuse me? I said that's a mistake, Audrey repeated. If you want to know what happened, you need to look him in the eye while I say it. Otherwise, it's just more paper pushing. Emily's expression flickered, just slightly, but she kept walking. That's not usually protocol. Neither is being blocked from your own OR, Audrey replied. They stopped at the elevators. The doors opened with a familiar ding and they stepped in. The space was silent, humming softly as it ascended. Emily didn't speak until the doors opened again. I understand how difficult this has been. No, Audrey said, turning to face her. You understand how inconvenient it's been, but it's not difficult, it's familiar, and that's the problem. I'm not asking for a personal apology. I'm demanding an institutional reckoning. Emily exhaled slowly, like she was holding in her reaction with both hands, then nodded. We'll see you at 9. The administrator walked off without another word. Audrey turned back toward the surgical wing and nearly collided with Dr. Pierce, who was rounding the corner. She spoke to you? He asked. She's trying, Audrey said. Not hard, but trying. Don't underestimate her, he replied. Emily's a bureaucrat, but she's also a survivor. She didn't get where she is without learning how to bend just enough to avoid breaking. I'm not here to teach her how to bend, Audrey said. I'm here to teach her what happens when people don't. Pierce gave a short nod. Then, after a moment, there's been talk. Audrey folded her arms. Always is. Some people think you're making too much noise, that you're turning this into a race thing. She let out a dry laugh. That's because it is one. I know that, he said. But some of the board members are already posturing, watching for missteps. Let them watch, Audrey replied, but make sure they're watching the right thing. Later that evening, the surgical team gathered in the break room. Lena, Jonah, and 2 other nurses who had heard about the incident. Are you sure you want to go to this thing? One of them asked, a younger nurse named Nia. They're going to circle the wagons. HR isn't there to protect us, you know. I'm going, Audrey said, because if I don't, this gets buried, and then the next time someone's in my shoes, maybe someone younger or quieter or more afraid, they'll have nothing to point to. You're not afraid? Nia asked, eyes wide. Audrey took a moment before answering. I'm always afraid, she said. I just don't let that be the loudest voice in the room. That night, Audrey went home for the first time in 72 hours. She dropped her bag just inside the door and collapsed onto the couch, not bothering to turn on the lights. The hum of the city filtered in through her cracked window. Sirens, distant traffic, a dog barking somewhere below. Life went on, even when yours felt like it was on hold. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She sat still, eyes open, staring into the ceiling like it could offer her a sign. And then her phone buzzed. A message from Lena. Whatever happens tomorrow, we've got you. Audrey stared at the words for a long time. Then typed back, thanks. I'll need it. She turned her phone face down on the coffee table, leaned back, and let the quiet hold her. Tomorrow was already starting to loom in her mind like a storm cloud over a rooftop. But she'd been through storms before, and she wasn't going to hide from this one. The conference room was colder than necessary, as if the building wanted everyone inside to feel a little uncomfortable, the kind of cold that crept past your blazer and found the space between your skin and your resolve. Audrey sat at the long, polished table with her back straight, palms resting lightly on a legal pad that didn't yet contain a single note. She didn't need to write anything down. Everything she had to say was already written into her bones. Across from her sat Emily Greer, stiffer than usual, her lips pressed into a line of corporate concern. To her left, the chief of security, Victor Mendez, wore the look of a man who didn't want to be here but knew he had to be. Dr. Pierce sat next to Audrey, silent but present, his hand occasionally curling into a fist before relaxing again. HR's representative, a younger white woman named Blair, clicked her pen repeatedly, stopping only when Emily shot. "We're here to address the incident that took place 4 days ago," Emily began. "Dr. Washington, I'd like to start by giving you the floor." Audrey looked up at her, steady. "It wasn't just an incident." Emily blinked. "I'm sorry?" "It wasn't an incident," Audrey said again, firmer this time. "It was a decision. A series of them. Rick Halstead didn't trip over a mistake, he made a choice. He looked at me, in full surgical scrubs, hospital ID visible, and decided that I wasn't supposed to be there. That decision almost cost someone their life, and whether you see it or not, that is not a misunderstanding, it's bias. And I'm not here for reconciliation, I'm here for change." Victor cleared his throat, folding his hands. "Rick says he didn't recognize you and was following protocol." "Your protocol is broken, then," Audrey snapped. "And so is your training, because let me be very clear, if I were a white male surgeon rushing toward that OR, we wouldn't be sitting here today. You all know that." Dr. Pierce leaned forward. "She's right. I've been here for 12 years. I've walked into this building in jeans and a hoodie and nobody's ever stopped me. Audrey's walked in a full medical coat and has been asked to show ID 3 times this year alone." Emily straightened. "We take these allegations seriously, but—" "There's no but," Audrey interrupted. "I'm not asking you to confirm what I know is real. I'm asking you what you plan to do about it." Blair from HR cleared her throat, her voice tentative. "We're looking into updating our implicit bias training. This could be a good catalyst to make that mandatory for our entire security team." "Good," Audrey said. "But I want it for all staff, security, clinical, administrative. And I want Rick reassigned until that training is completed." Victor shifted in his seat. "That's a big ask." "No," Audrey replied. "It's the minimum. You don't get to put someone like him back at that post without consequences. Not if you want your black staff to feel safe, not if you want your patients to be safe." Emily exchanged a glance with Blair, who gave a small nod. Then she looked at Victor. "It's reasonable." Victor leaned back, expression unreadable. "Fine, we'll make it happen." Audrey exhaled once. Not victory, just breath. "And one more thing," she added. "I want this logged, not hidden in some closed-door HR memo. I want it in writing that this happened. I want to know that if this happens to the next woman, the next doctor, the next person of color, who dares to walk into their own workplace, they won't be gaslit into thinking they imagined it." There was a pause, a long one, and then Emily said, "We'll issue a statement, internal, to all hospital staff, acknowledging the incident and outlining the steps we're taking." Audrey didn't smile. Not yet. She just nodded. "Then we're done here." The room emptied slowly. Dr. Pierce patted her shoulder as he passed. Blair gave a quick, apologetic smile. Victor left without a word. Emily stayed seated, gathering her things methodically. As Audrey moved to leave, Emily called her name. "I know you think I don't get it," she said, "and maybe I don't. Not fully, but I want you to know I'm learning. And I'm listening." Audrey looked at her. For once, there was no tension in her face, just exhaustion. "Keep listening," Audrey said quietly. "That's how change starts." She walked out. The hallway looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. That afternoon, back in the break room, Lena burst in with her phone in hand. "They sent the memo," she said, breathless. "It's got your name in it. Your name, Audrey. And they're making the training mandatory starting next week. Rick's been reassigned to an off-site security team while they review." Audrey took the phone and read the words slowly. Her name. Not buried. Not erased. She didn't cry. But she did sit down, and for the first time in days, She let herself breathe without bracing for impact. Jonah walked in moments later, tossing a candy bar her way. "Hero of the day," he said. "How's it feel?" "Tiring," she said, unwrapping it, "but worth it." A nurse poked her head in. "Dr. Washington, there's a patient requesting you personally. Post-op follow-up from the aortic repair. Said they remember your voice from the OR. Won't talk to anyone else." Audrey stood, smoothing her coat. "Tell them I'm on my way." She looked at Lena and Jonah. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" Lena asked. "For standing with me." They didn't answer. They didn't have to. As Audrey walked down the hallway, the sun poured through the east-facing windows. Warm, soft, honest. Her badge swung gently from her neck, catching the light. She passed the nurse's station, past the scrub room, past the spot where Rick had once stood like a wall in her path. And she didn't look back, because she had patients to see, because she had rounds to make, because she had a name. And now, finally, people were starting to say it.